I go to hockey games, I go to concerts, I listen to loud music. I do everything I did before, and I think to some extent even more. I also tried hyperbaric oxygen, which was very expensive, and I think overall I regret that. So it's a tremendous thing to try the Jastreboff method, because that really, I didn't believe in the beginning. It sounded kind of like I want a pill or something, but it really did work. It's tremendous to physically get to this point where I don't feel like I have tinnitus anymore.
Today I'm joined by Eric, and we're going to discuss brain retraining for tinnitus. Eric, what's your message to the tinnitus community?
I use the techniques that I learned through Treble Health to, in essence, get from being so distressed that I couldn't sleep and I wasn't sure how I was going to maintain my job. I wasn't sure how I was going to maintain my relationship or really function at all, to sitting, in front of my computer with Ben, who works, at Treble Health, and actually giving the interview talking about how I'm better to the point that I don't hear my tinnitus at all. So it's been less than a year. I got into March 2023, and now it's December of 2023. And from, I'd say, about 2 months ago, I really haven't experienced tinnitus having any real impact on my life. I feel like what I hear is the same as what I did before my hearing damage. I don't physically experience it. It's not like I hear it in the back of my head and I'm ignoring it. I hear silence. I can walk into a room. I hear nothing. I simply don't experience it much anymore. I used to have an alcohol reaction to it. It's gone. I used to have a caffeine reaction to it. It's gone. So taking the time and using the techniques and putting in the work does work, and my life is returned to normal. And I think the coolest part about it is the techniques I learned from doing the retraining therapy have helped me in other aspects of my life, just from improving my focus. But overall, I would say that I'm better.
And you shared with me earlier that you have 3 tools that you leaned on the most that did help you with the brain retraining. We're going to touch on those in a moment. You also shared there's some things that you tried that didn't work so well or that had limited results. What were those initial tools and techniques that you tried in the first month after you developed sudden tinnitus?
So after I developed tinnitus, I saw my doctor as quickly as I could, and he gave me prednisone, which is a steroid, and that did help. But to clarify, it only helps for a short period of time. If it's 6 months later, it won't do anything for you now. But I had hearing damage, so I was able to take steroids in the first few days, and that did reduce the tinnitus, but it did not cure me. I also tried hyperbaric oxygen, which was very expensive, and I think overall I regret that decision. I really was panicking. I went into a tube that was filled with pure oxygen, which is nerve wracking, and paying a lot of money for it. And I don't feel that that was worth it. I tried cognitive behavioral therapy with a therapist. I also tried it myself, and I didn't find that that worked. So these are kind of more of the medical approaches that I tried, and I didn't feel like I had the success I needed. I still struggled focusing. Work, friends, trying to watch a movie or watching, I remember, Lord of the Rings, and the only thing I could think about was how loud the sound was in my head while Frodo's screaming. The movie is loud, but the only thing I can hear is just the sound of static and high pitched twangs of like a guitar. Eventually, and I guess this goes into the telling of my story. I kept looking for solutions. I looked at I remember looking at the thing where you flick the back of your head, and it gave me 5 seconds of relief, but it was ultimately nothing. I remember finding a bunch of YouTubers and snake oil salesmen selling all sorts of things I knew that weren't going to work. I can't remember his name. He's a lovely British gentleman. He has like a big white beard. He gave me a lot of hope. And then about a month and a half in, I stumbled on Treble Health, and I decided to give them a chance. And I said, okay, I'm just going to go in. I went through one of their interviews, and I was basically given the confidence by, I think, your brother, to go ahead and try it. And then I worked with Sarah, and Sarah, in essence, started teaching me the basics, what I needed to do. And I know we're going to talk about that in a minute. And she also calmed me down and said, you're going to get better. This isn't going to be the rest of your life. Because at that time in my life, I was thinking, how am I going to be sane 10 years from now? I have a train horn going off in my head. I can't sleep. I barely want to eat. I'm losing weight. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't even know how I'm going to focus on my fiance. I don't know what I'm going to do. And it's just, you know, destructive to everything around you because there's nothing you can do to stop it. But there is, and that's why I'm here today. I went from point A, which is I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm going to lose my sanity and just be like in a cardboard box 10 years from now, screaming at squirrels walking around, to being in front of Ben Thompson, who, as I started Treble Health. And it's tremendous to physically get to this point where I don't feel like I have tinnitus anymore. I don't hear it. I can walk into a quiet room. I don't hear it. It just doesn't bother me. I don't even really hear it if I put earplugs in. So it's a tremendous thing to try the Jastreboff method, because that really, I didn't believe in the beginning. It sounded kind of like I want a pill or something, but it really did work.
Let's paint the full picture here. So you did go to an ENT doctor in your local town, an in-person clinic. You got a hearing test. You tried a medical treatment, and it did help some. So that was a positive thing. But what happened when you were still struggling and you went to those follow-up appointments with your ENT doctor? Uh, what did they present as some other options for management?
They pretty much told me that it will go away on its own and to just ignore it, which doesn't really work. So they didn't really give me any tools. The hearing test was that they gave me was actually not good because it only went up to 8,000 hertz, and my hearing loss is about 15,000 and 16,000 hertz, so it never showed up on the test. But they really didn't give me any tools. I had to do the entire thing myself to find anyone to help me.
Well, I'm happy that you're here. Let's talk about those three tools that you did use for your brain retraining. And really, what I'm seeing as part of your story, Eric, is tinnitus is not set in stone, that this is a neurological condition, even though it was related to a sudden hearing loss, which was from noise exposure in your case, if I recall, that the tinnitus itself was able to get better over time, significantly better. So, talk to us about these three tools that you used for brain retraining. And let's start with tool number one.
So I distracted myself from the tinnitus. Specifically, I would say the fear of tinnitus. So you hear the sound and you get a pit in your stomach. It's anxious. It's just an experience that drives you to think, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna panic. And you're trying not to panic in that very moment, which is gonna make your tinnitus louder. So I would stimulate myself by touching my fingertips together and rubbing them because it just gave me something to do. Or I'd breathe, just anything I could really do. Not like watching a YouTube video, but physically another sensation in my body: touch, taste, hot, cold, something like that. Anything that gave me something else to feel in the time took my focus away from how upset I was that I had tinnitus and my sense of lack of control.
We've covered that actually with a colleague of ours, Glenn Schweitzer, who recommended a similar approach of having multisensory stimulation instead of just sound therapy, for example, of stimulating the body, stimulating the skin, potentially having a visually stimulating environment, stimulating with scent, just other ways to take the attention off of the auditory stimulus and create a more robust, comprehensive sensory input into the brain. So, practically speaking, what did you do during your workday? Every so often, was it a timer? Tell us about the tactical tips for how you got this done.
Specifically regarding the sensing, generally I didn't have any set schedule. I would go about my day, and as time went on, I get less and less anxious about the tinnitus, but I'd still have panic attacks. In the beginning, they were all the time. And near the end, when I eventually got to stage four, habituation, I had them very infrequently. But when I'd have them, I'd take a deep breath and know that I was having, I could feel it coming on, just a panic attack from this constant sound. And I would rub my fingertips together. And just simple as that, I'd rub them together and I'd just really focus on the fingertips, or I'd breathe in or notice the cold air on my nose, just anything I could in the moment just to kind of settle off the panic attack. And then usually with the sound therapy that I was doing, whatever other technique I was using, that would kind of settle me back down, and then I would continue on my journey to habituation. So I would use it as needed. I didn't really use it on any set schedule. I think it's dependent on the person, of course, but I used really in the moment.
You had mentioned Dr. Jastreboff, who is my personal mentor, founder of Tinnitus Retraining Therapy. and his method and habituation. We're going to touch on that in a few minutes. Tell us next about tool number 2 that helped you in your brain retraining.
The thing that helped me get, and this is tool number 2, the thing that helped me get from stage 3 to stage 4 was crickets, so natural sound therapy. I remember I spent a while stuck in stage 3. I kept bouncing back and forth. And the crickets at night would just kind of nuke the tinnitus noise in my head. And so I'd sleep through it with the crickets. And over the summer, I just naturally found, I'd go talk to the person from Treble Health and be like, hey, I'm getting better, and I think it's the crickets outside. The noise that they're making is physically making me better. And I'm like, oh, yeah, natural sound therapy is one of the best techniques you can use. So the thing that really got me to get past the kind of the wall I hit at stage 3 was just crickets outside for the few months in the summer. I thought about even putting them in my house in a container because they were so useful.
For those who need a refresher, let's put that image on the screen of the 4 stages of habituation. So when Eric was in his worst with tinnitus, it was stage 1, and progressively over time through the brain retraining was able to move through the stages, and then moving from stage 3 to stage 4, he utilized crickets. And other than the natural sounds, Eric, what advice would you have for someone who's trying to use cricket sounds to help with their tinnitus?
I think the most important thing is to listen to it for a long period of time. I think people sometimes don't listen to the natural sounds or the sound therapy for long enough, but I think it's the consistency to the point that you don't even notice the sound in the background that makes a difference. I think it's the consistency and the amount of time as you have your brain heal from whatever caused your tinnitus. So it's really just kind of medication as I describe it. Take it every day, use it for the amount of time you're supposed to use it, and it will work.
Now, Eric, could you share tool number 3 that helped you with the brain retraining for tinnitus?
So that was sound therapy for me. And I remember when I first started at Treble Health, they told me to use a sound that would help mask my tinnitus but wasn't necessarily music. And it's supposed to be played slightly softer than the tinnitus in the background. And I spent a lot of time. I tried to use some of the natural things like pink noise and other crickets. The crickets eventually helped later. But for me, the sound that I found helped most was actually a Spotify playlist I found online made by someone who had tinnitus, and he had made the exact sound on a loop repeat of the noise I had in my head. So I matched the exact tinnitus sound I found online to what I physically felt like I heard in my head. And then I used bone conducting headphones so I could still function throughout the day and get the natural sound input and put it in my head. And I found with sound therapy, by having the bone conducting headphones and the same sound, I felt like I was in control. And that really helped with my anxiety because I could control the volume of the sound therapy. It gave me a sense of control. It also helped mask it. So it calmed me down and it got me used to the noise. I wasn't focusing on the tinnitus, but I was focusing on the sound therapy. And so the sound therapy was something that I felt like I could control. And as a result, I calmed down and I stopped paying attention to the noise. And the more and more I stopped paying attention to the noise, the quieter and quieter my tinnitus got. And then from then on, different reactions to caffeine or alcohol started, abated and went down. So the sound therapy was, I think, the most impactful thing for me. And bone conducting headphones are great. And then it actually works so well, I don't know where my bone conducting headphones are anymore. So I don't use the sound therapy really much anymore because it was so successful.
So you had multiple tools, and they each helped your brain reduce the perception and loudness of tinnitus over time. How did you learn about this method, the brain retraining, and tell us what you know about the research that supports it?
I first ran across it when I was panicking trying to find what the cure was online. I went through all the forums. I did everything I wasn't supposed to do that only makes everything worse. I read all sorts of bad stories, etc., etc., and I kept seeing this name pop up called Jastreboff over and over and over and over and over again. And I eventually read his paper, and I don't remember it very well off the top of my head, but I believe the concept went something along the lines of it was if you have a fear stimulus, your brain in essence focuses on a stimulus more and more and more. So that stimulus being tinnitus makes it louder and louder and louder. Whereas if you don't focus on it, the brain naturally says, this is important, I'm going to tune it out. It's not something that I need because it's consistent noise. So Jastreboff, as far as I understand, said along the lines of, if you can create a system or you can get the person you're working with to not pay attention to the noise, they will no longer hear the noise or it'll be significantly reduced. And in my case, I don't experience tinnitus. I have it. I know I do. I can go into a loud, I can go to a hockey game and it can be very loud and I might have a spike for 12 hours. I know I still do have it, but I don't hear it the next day. It's gone. I know I walk around and I can hear birds chirping. I can walk outside. I can go into a quiet room and I hear nothing. But and correct me if I'm wrong. I think that if I put it simply, it's simply the more you focus on a stimulus, the more your brain will heighten its awareness of it. And the less you focus on a stimulus, the more the brain will sort of push it to the side and say, suppress this, don't pay attention to it.
That's correct. Yeah. So when the brain deems a stimulus as important, whether that's in a very negative way or a very positive way, then we will perceive it more. It will be more on our focus. And Dr. Jastreboff is my personal mentor. He shared a story with me that illustrates that fear response quite well. If you go into a motel and you arrive late at night and you check in at the front and they say, oh, please be cautious around your room. There was a circus in town and they lost some of their animals. So actually some snakes might be missing. And then you go into your hotel room and you enter and you get ready for sleep. And then you start to hear this hissing sound in the dark room. Immediately the brain freaks out and there's no way you're going to be comfortable and be able to drift off into sleep or ignore that sound. You just can't. Your brain won't let you. Now you turn on the lights and you realize that's actually the sound of the radiator or the air conditioner. So it wasn't a snake at all. It was the structure of the room. Now, someone else coming in that room who didn't know anything about a potential snake or a potential danger hears that sound and their brain usually just tunes it out, or they might investigate it but not be so emotionally charged by it. So to some degree, the negative tinnitus, anxiety, stress, insomnia response that's so common is because of a lack of education around what is actually going on between my ear and my brain, and an understanding that more focus, more stress, and hyperfixation on the sound, and simply not knowing what's the cause or what I can do about it, amplifies it, makes it worse, makes us go into that panic. So I love that story, and it does illustrate the importance of getting the right knowledge on tinnitus and having the right tools in place. You did find tools, and you did find Dr. Jastreboff's research, tinnitus retraining therapy. Talk to us about some of your experience with the retraining program. How much time did it take you? What's some advice you have to others who are in it right now or considering starting?
It took me about 6 months to go from stage 1 to stage 4. So I was very pleased with that. It was a lot faster than I thought it would be. If I gave one piece of advice, for me, it was very slow progress for the first 4 months. I felt like I was just slowly moving and I felt like I'd take 2 steps back and 1 step forward. And then around the 5th month, I feel like I really shot up in progress, and then the sound really started going down. By the 6th month, I felt like I just didn't even have it anymore. I feel like my life has literally returned to normal. Like I don't even have tinnitus. It's like I had it temporarily. But the retraining process, in my opinion, is about consistency, and the consistency isn't necessarily just with the sound therapy, because I think you can use sound therapy and still suffer, because if you don't focus on not focusing on the tinnitus, you have to simply let go. It can't hurt you. It can't do anything to you, right? It physically cannot hurt you. It cannot do anything to make any situation worse, but you can based on your reaction to it. So sound therapy helps you manage your reaction to it, or at least for me, it really helped me manage my reaction to it. But if you feel like you're making very little progress, at least for me in the beginning, I'd say that was normal. It took me time before I really took off, and it was very fast when it started happening. And it was really because I managed to get over the fear hurdle of like, I don't know what I'm going to do. This sound sucks. I'm panicking. This is awful. This is the worst thing ever. And going to, I don't think about it. And it's not that I hear it and don't think about it. It's that I don't hear it and I don't think about it. So the Jastreboff method works. And The secret really is not paying attention to the sound. Don't pay attention to the snakes. It was just a radiator. It won't hurt you. Really focus on not listening to it, but don't punish yourself. And that's, I think, is really important, is don't punish yourself because you haven't made progress in a month or two. It's going to take time. And then after your brain physically is going to heal itself. It's going to start, reorganizing itself so that it doesn't pay attention to the sound as much. And at that point, you're going to heal. So use the sound therapy, use the distraction techniques, use, cold sensations, use touch, use natural sound therapy. It can be noises in the woods from the trees blowing around. It can be anything that you want, but really focus on managing your reaction to the tinnitus. And the best, most consistent tool I had to manage my reaction to tinnitus was the sound therapy. And it was because I was in control of it. And when I felt I was in control, I felt my fear of tinnitus melt away. And that was really what I described the whole journey as, is feeling in control again. And then once I felt I was in control, tinnitus noise drops so quickly, and I just don't hear it anymore. It's like it's not there.
Eric, right now you're living an active life, but I imagine when tinnitus was at its worst, a lot of your day-to-day joy and work was sort of taken away from you. So what are you doing today that is a true gift, considering where you came from and how significant the tinnitus was of a bother for you?
I don't carry earplugs around my neck anymore because I'm worried about a car backfiring. I don't feel the need to protect my ears every second of the day. I go to hockey games, I go to concerts, I listen to loud music. I do everything I did before, and I think to some extent even more. I went to a gun range and I wasn't even scared at all of how loud it could be. It doesn't control me. I don't feel a sensation of fear. I don't have a need to cover my ears when something drives by, or a truck, or worrying about keeping my windows up because a car might honk. I don't have any of that at all. I'm completely back to normal. I don't care. Sometimes I think to myself, like, well, I already have tinnitus, so it doesn't matter if it's loud. I could just rehabituate to it if anything bad really happened. So I walk around and I don't have any concerns. I do carry earplugs with me sometimes, like if I'm going to a concert, because I do recognize hearing damage is cumulative. So I don't panic, but I'm like, oh, well, I'm going to a concert. I should protect my ears. Or, oh, I'm going to a drag race, with really loud cars. I should protect my ears. But that's really about it. I'm not terrified. I'm not inside. I'm not plugging my ears. I used to have a decibel meter in my phone, and I was like, I have to measure everything in this house, otherwise this is going to get louder. And that's not how it works at all, right? For me at least, since I was hearing damage, I have to make my hearing a lot worse for it to actually happen again, and then I just rehabituate. My life is back to normal, and I think I do more now related to loud noises than I ever did. And I don't really think about it a lot of the times. I just sometimes put earplugs in when I'm like, oh, well, yeah, this would be bad for my hearing if I listen to a loud concert for 3 hours. I should probably put in the earplugs, but that's about it.
Excellent. Wow, I love that. Guys, if you're watching on YouTube, leave a comment below to say helpful if Eric's story is giving you tools, giving you hope. That's what we're all about here at Treble Health. Eric, really grateful for you to share your story and hope to check in with you in 6 months to see how you're doing, my friend.
Thanks for making this entire operation, Ben. It really changed my life. It was pretty bad in the beginning, and I don't even think about it at all now. So 2 thumbs up.
Keep it up, man. We're rooting for you.
Thanks. And good luck everyone else.